When the voices that matter speak, they speak to GBC. They speak on Moment Tonight.
By some of your appointments, you appear to be creating a parallel civil service. 2020 is not too far away from today. Are we seeing a comeback?
Would you say that HEPIC truly served any purpose?
The debt overhang on the economy of our country was such that the country couldn't bear it.
We've moved more people out of poverty and hunger since 1992 than any other era in the period of Ghana.
Under my watch, the Ghanaian economy picked up.
A legion of youth is being trained in terms of security.
Aging stage of your life is a time you have to plan for.
Death is a universal name.
Persons who would take their lives by suicide may, prior to the act, have given us a lot of information.
I am sufficiently intelligent to know that.
Yes, there's corruption in the Parliament of Ghana.
They make me feel bad.
We have not departed from our core principles.
I should be able to count how many millionaires I've been able to create.
There was only one incubator, and by the time we set up and put her child in, the child was dead.
They run away because they don't want to get married at that early age.
Moment Tonight, here we don't just talk, we push the talkers to walk the talk.
Moment.
Maybe GBC deserves the TV license.
Mr. President, I thought this was the main issue why you came here.
This is my big bro.
From Mondays to Thursdays on GBC News Channel at 8:15 p.m. Exceedingly excited to welcome you to the show tonight. My name is Abdul Hayi Mumin, and this is Moment Tonight. And tonight we throw the spotlight on the contributions of non-governmental organizations in the health sector. And I'm sure that you do know that the health sector is one that is bedeviled with so many problems. And yet, anytime the finance minister, and I'm talking about finance ministers from ever since Ghana became an independent country, there have always been gaps left for the health sector in terms of what needs to be done, as a result of which we do not have that kind of ideal society in respect of the health sector that we all wish to have. But how have the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, been contributing to ensuring that at least we uplift that sector? I've been joined by Dr. Kojo Ben Taylor. He is the president of Sanford International Clinics, Ghana, and subsequently on the show we will also spend some time talking about Sanford and exactly what they have been doing also here in Ghana, but also across the rest of Africa. Dr. Kojo Ben Taylor, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
And I'm excited because the first time I saw you personally was at an event where you were making a donation at some schools in the Medina area right here in Accra. Before we even get to the meat of the discussion, can you tell me exactly what you have been up to in the last 1 month?
The last 1 month we've been distributing some shoes. We brought in about 30,000 shoes, and one might ask, what does healthcare and shoes have in common? A lot. We distributed the shoes alongside some medications for the public schools and then the private schools. We went into areas that help. And then we picked some schools that we felt some children without shoes actually are deprived from going to school and learning very adequately. And so we distribute these shoes to give them the opportunity and the confidence to be able to go back in classrooms and learn. We also believe that that's part of our social responsibility, to be able to help the communities in which we serve.
Great. So I'll come back to the exact things that Sanford has been doing. But let's return to the original conversation, which has to do with the contributions that NGOs such as yours have been making to the health sector. But you see, Doc, I know that you have lived in the U.S. as well. You've worked in the U.S., I believe. But you see, in Ghana, in recent times, and perhaps even since independence, we've always had this syndrome where we complain about the no-bed syndrome. I mean, at a point, it became very topical because an aged man had fallen sick, was taken to a major hospital here in Accra. He was turned away because there was no bed in that hospital. He was taken to a different major hospital in Accra, turned away again. Eventually, when he got to Kolebu, again, there was no bed. The man finally died. That became a topical issue. And then we all started discussing no bed syndrome. How is it that in 21st century Ghana, people fall sick and they cannot even get a bed on which to lie on for medical attention? That is bad enough. Tell me, is it peculiar to Ghana?
It is not peculiar to Ghana, even though it is very common in developing countries. We are challenged because we do not necessarily have all the financial resources to be able to take responsibility for the people, especially those at the lower end of the spectrum who do not have the financial resources to be able to take care of themselves. And so when in those scenarios, this is where your topic earlier of where the NGOs come in. This is where the NGOs can be of tremendous help. Most NGOs will source money outside of the country, and then they bring it in. They utilize some of these financial resources to augment what the government is doing. When you take a look at a country like Ghana, the government, to be frank, is doing a tremendous job in the healthcare sector. When it comes to primary healthcare, Ghana is one of the privileged countries in Africa that has done tremendously well in making sure that we have provided access to people at the base of the economic ladder who don't have the financial resources. Now you say, does it mean that people should be able to go to the hospital and not have access to a bed? Not necessarily. We need to manage our resources. It just means that we need to direct people to facilities that have the access, that have the opportunity to provide beds to those people. So the private and the public sector need to be working in concert of each other so that the limited resources available in the country can be properly deployed.
So, and Doc, forgive me that I'm returning to the same question. In places like the US, like the UK, in the so-called developed world, do we have instances where people are ever driven away from health facilities because those health, and I'm talking about public health facilities, sure, do not have beds, something as basic as that, for example?
It all comes down to health finances, really. The developed world has pooled financial resources in the form of insurance. It's easy to buy insurance in the developed world. The government subsidizes. The private companies make sure that it's imperative that its employees do have access to insurance. And developed countries like UK and US, universal healthcare access really is easily available. And so when people fall sick and they go to the hospital, the bed is available not because the hospital has interest and desire to want to provide them to everyone, but it's because they will get paid for the services they are performing to take care of the patient. And that's where the pooled resources come in. Health financing, insurance. So when insurance is available, money is available, the bed will be available. for everyone who goes to this.
We run a national health insurance scheme in this country. That scheme has been running for close to 20 years now, and we still don't have that kind of system you talk about.
The national health insurance in this country, even though we take it for granted, is one of the most valuable and well-cherished universal health coverage mechanism we have in the country. As a matter of fact, it is one of the best in Africa. Bill Gates actually went as far as saying Ghana's national health insurance system helps it to provide a universal health coverage. And that particular coverage, privilege, is one of the best in Africa, according to Bill Gates. And I don't disagree with him, because even developed countries have been trying to provide universal health coverage with very minimal success. Ghana has been very successful in putting in place a national health care insurance coverage that reaches out to the poor, the middle class, and even the rich who want to be on it can also be on it. And it is one of our most valuable access in improving our healthcare system in the country, which ultimately also improve our lifespan.
Look, so we're talking about contributions that NGOs like yours make to the health sector. And in the past, sitting here, I've had, on this platform, I've had complaints from some NGOs who claim they attempted to ship some medical equipment, including beds. And at the entry, port of entry, you were asked to pay taxes that they found to be very unreasonable. At some point, some of these donors had to turn these beds and other facilities to neighboring countries such as Nigeria and so on. Do you have similar experiences?
We do not, but it's unfortunate when NGOs embark on an initiative to bring in goods to do public good, and then the goods get into the country and they don't have the financial resources to clear the goods. To bring goods into the country and expect to take it for free, it's not really an acceptable norm in the country. And so it's unfortunate when NGOs will bring goods and expect that they will not have to pay for it. A lot of the planning does not take into consideration the duty or the expense involved in taking out the goods. And to me, that's a little poor planning. No country gives goods away for free at the port, and Ghana shouldn't be any different. It's really a matter of properly preparing to make sure that when the goods get here, we'll be able to take them out.
No, but look, when you consider other sectors, for example, the construction sector, when contractors ship in excavators, bulldozers and graders, these are not necessarily taxed. They don't pay import duties on these. Even for persons who are into the transport business, when they import buses that can transport people, commuters from one point to the other in certain quantities, the imports, I mean, there appears to be a certain subsidy on these charges. Why not extend that kind of attention to the health sector, for example?
Some of that benefit does exist in the healthcare sector. There's certain equipment you can bring into the country without incurring duty. Also, if you're bringing in certain equipment into the country, you need to get clearance from the Ministry of Health and then also from the Finance Ministry. If you can get these justified and cleared, and they've given you the ability to be able to clear the goods for free, you can do that, regardless of whatever industry you are in. And healthcare is no different. And so it's a matter of really properly planning and make sure that the necessary permits or exemptions have been asked ahead of time before the good gets here.
So what I'm attempting to do is to expose the problems, and then subsequently we'll find out from where you sit, your observation about how NGOs have intervened to help sort of reduce some of these problems and their occurrences. So another problem that many Ghanaians will tell you they face when they have to face or visit health facilities in the country is the attitude of health workers. I'm sure you have heard some of these stories. Again, what could the problem be that somebody who has chosen to be a nurse, a doctor, a paramedic, whatever role the person plays, knows that he's going to deal with sick people, people who have come in with emergencies and are not in the right frame of mind, and yet some of these people are maltreated, abused, spoken to in terms that makes them feel undignified, and so on and so forth. You know about these issues, don't you, Doc?
They do exist, unfortunately. I will ask the public to really please be patient with the healthcare providers and caregivers. They go through tremendous amount of pressure in meeting the needs of the patient who come in sick and have a lot of not just healthcare issues, but they might not even have the financial resources to pay it. And so when they come, it's not inconceivable for them to bring the problem to the caregiver. Now, I'm not making excuses for caregivers who are not passionate about what they do and then be much more receptive to a patient who is very sick. It's not acceptable. Part of it comes through training. The organization and how they train their people to be more customer-centric, to understand that the patient who is coming in, regardless of how much money they are paying, contributes to paying the salary of the caregiver. And so part of it is awareness, to let the people realize that the patient sitting in front of you, no matter where they are in any level of society, is the one contributing to paying the paycheck of that caregiver. That awareness needs to be created.
Again, another major problem, and since you talked about paycheck, is for doctors at many points in time to lay down their tools in protest against some issues that have to do with their wages. You talk about nurses. Every now and then they're on strike, and whenever doctors and nurses go on strike, we all know the consequences. You talk about paycheck, they think they're not being adequately taken care of and appreciated.
It is really a very challenging situation to put medical doctors in, quite frankly. They face a very tough job on a daily basis. Whether it's providing primary health care or specialty doctors going through surgery, it's a tough situation. And doctors or healthcare providers are really no different than any other business sector. They earn paycheck. They have financial responsibilities at home. They have children. They have school fees to pay. And so when it is expected of them to provide services without corresponding income coming in, it's a very tough job. When doctors go on strike or nurses go on strike, it does in fact affect people's health. Some people could die out of that scenario. So it's not a situation that we all encourage for it to happen. And I'm hoping that the institutions within government that are responsible for making sure that the doctors and the nurses or healthcare providers don't face these scenarios are really putting in the necessary mechanisms to prevent this situation from occurring. The private sectors also face it. It's not just the government institutions. And so it's incumbent on us healthcare providers to make sure that we have put in the necessary mechanisms so that the care providers are adequately compensated for the work they do.
Look, in 2020, and I believe even up till now, but especially at some point in 2020, our healthcare system was exposed to a very great extent because when we began to record huge numbers of persons who had been infected with COVID-19, some of our hospitals were overwhelmed. And therefore the question of whether or not we even had the adequate number of hospitals in the country, that question came up. To the extent that in one of his addresses to the nation, the president did indicate that he was going to build 88 district hospitals. That was as a result of the fact that the system had been exposed. We did not have the adequate number of hospitals across the country to take care of the sick people. Should we, and God forbid, ever be visited by any pandemic that could affect our people in their numbers? Again, question is, you know this problem?
Indeed. Ghana faced a tremendous challenge with the pandemic. But Ghana is no different. Even more developed countries faced similar challenges, maybe some worse. When it comes to Ghana's primary healthcare system, because it is a little more matured, that's what helped us in dealing with, for example, the Ebola that we just faced, that a lot of our neighboring countries went through. Ghana was able to prevent a lot of it at its borders, but also within the country, because we have a very good primary healthcare system, we are able to take care and respond to pandemics much more proactively. If you take a look at the recent pandemic, COVID-19, that recently occurred, or we are still going through it, we have been pretty good in proactively staying in front of it to make sure that we contain it. And we've done a pretty good job at that. And we have received a lot more world attention as a result of the good work our Ministry of Health actually is doing to contain it. So the challenge is there, but it also brings to light the fact that our healthcare system does need additional facilities to supplement it. There's lack. We haven't gotten to the level where we feel that we can adequately support the needs of our people, especially those in the rural areas.
So now, look, we have identified some of these problems. You are the president of Sanford Organization, an NGO. What are some of the contributions you have made, and by extension, other NGOs have made to address some of these problems we have enumerated so far?
NGOs do play a great role in supplementing the healthcare system in this country. Most developing countries rely on NGOs' resources to be able to provide adequate healthcare in those countries. Ghana is no different. And we have NGOs here that specialize in health education. We have NGOs here that provide actual healthcare services. We have NGOs here in the country that helps to improve and strengthen the healthcare system that supports the healthcare given in the country. We do have NGOs that concentrate on bringing in financial resources to supplement what the government is doing. And so NGOs do play a tremendous role in making sure that the healthcare system in the country is strengthened and do provide adequate healthcare.
So specifically, tell me about Sanford and what you have, what role you have played within the health sector.
One of the benefits we have derived from being here in the country is the cooperation we've had with the government, as an example. Sanford is a very large, it's the largest integrated private healthcare system in America. And so in Ghana, we bring tremendous resources to help supplement the healthcare system.
Maybe before we get into what you are doing and have done in Ghana in the past, you may want to tell us about Sanford so as to put the conversation in proper perspective. What is Sanford? What do you do?
Sanford in U.S. is the largest integrated private healthcare system in America. Mm-hmm. I partnered with Sanford to come to Ghana to establish its presence here. And we operate primary healthcare facilities in 5 distinctive areas: Kaswa, Adenta, Mankesim, Cape Coast, Kumasi. It's essentially primary healthcare. We are moving into providing theaters, so we can now provide some
So when you say you operate primary healthcare facilities, again, I would like you to break down that for us. You've built some hospitals that you are operating those hospitals all by yourselves, and I'm referring to Sanford. Is that what it means?
Yes, we build our own facilities. Mm-hmm. And we provide primary healthcare, OPD services, maternity services. We have our own laboratory, and then we have pharmacy within our facilities.
How is that different from businessmen who have established health facilities across the country for the purposes of making profits? In terms of the structure that you run your health facilities, how do they differ from those that are run primarily, well, to offer healthcare services, but also to make profit? How is that different?
There is no difference in the outlook, and that is to become financially sustainable. Mm. Even though we are an NGO, it doesn't mean that we give our services for free. We provide some of the best quality healthcare services within the communities in which we operate. We charge adequate fees for the services we provide. However, for a patient to come into our facility and experience the quality of care we provide, they will have to pay substantially more somewhere else to be able to get comparable care that they will get from our facility. And so we are about sustainability. We want to make sure that the facilities can operate sustainably so we can continue to provide good care to the patient and also to expand. If we simply exist to give free services, we will not be able to provide that level of quality of care, in our opinion.
Now, Doc, again, especially when you go to the northern part of the country, northern region in particular, you will lose count of the number of NGOs that operate within that enclave. And sometimes, and in the past over here at GBC, we've done stories that investigated the genuineness of some of these NGOs and whether or not they were actually using the monies that donors were giving them for the purposes they made the donors aware of. And to be honest with you, some of them failed the test. And so over a period of time, what has happened is there's donor fatigue to start with, but then there's donor distrust for NGOs also generally. Now, in the face of all these challenges, how are you able to move on as an NGO?
Well, there's a slight difference between how we operate and how others NGOs operate, in the sense that our funding comes exclusively from Sanford. We don't go to various institutions looking for money. It comes exclusively from Sanford US. Now, when NGOs operate in areas where there's lack of access to healthcare, and they have sought funding to provide certain services based on the objectives that they use to raise funds, it is immoral not to be able to use the money to serve that purpose. When NGOs go to areas where their services are not felt by the community, we believe there needs to be agencies that needs to monitor, especially those giving the funds to these NGOs. They need to be able to provide reports back to the funding sources to specifically show what type of services they have been able to deliver to the public with the money that was given. And in the country, there are organizations that oversee the functions and operations of NGOs. And I think these are some of the institutions that will expose NGOs that are not performing according to the charter in which they raise the money for.
But to what extent are you personally concerned about the activities of these quack NGOs and how their activities can eventually affect all NGOs or most NGOs? Yours may have an exclusive source of funding, but for those that have to depend on several others, you certainly should be concerned, because again the focus is on how NGOs can come together to help government in offering the citizenry quality healthcare services.
We believe it is the responsibility of the NGO and its funders, particularly the funders, to probe a little more about what the NGOs do with the money that is entrusted on them to be able to manage. For us, when we are in the country with a specific objective to perform, one of what we needed to do was to come into the country and help to strengthen the healthcare system. And so we signed an MOU, for example, with the Ministry of Health, and then we took in about 21 chip compounds. Right. We invested in those compounds to improve the facilities physically. We put in our technology. We put in our electronic medical record system. We trained the people. We co-branded these facilities and improved the quality of care in these facilities. We ran them for about 6 years and then turned them back to the Ministry of Health. Now, we believe that's effective use of NGO money, in our opinion, even though our funding comes specifically from Sanford organization. What I'm hoping is that some of these practices will also be emulated by other NGOs, realizing that funding can be properly deployed to help improve the health systems in the country.
So are you also engaged in training of health service providers, doctors, nurses, paramedics, whoever plays a role within that sector? Because you could have the facility that provides primary health care services, you could have all the beautiful infrastructure, but if you don't have properly well-trained personnel, and we started off with that, the attitude aspect of health and the persons who provide the services thereof, you must certainly be interested in the quality of the personnel as well.
We are. There's lack of healthcare personnel in the country. For example, if you go to the north, as you were referring to earlier, it's not inconceivable to see one doctor responsible for 30,000 patients. If you come to the south, you will see a much more favorable ratio where doctors are easily available to patients that come in for care. It's really funny that about 70% of all the medical personnel, doctors particularly, we have in the country are in Accra and Kumasi. Okay, about 70%. The rest of them are distributed around the country. So there is lack of incentives for healthcare personnel to move to the rural areas. We think that needs to be improved. We don't have enough healthcare personnel in the country, and it was encouraging to see that the government has now released some funding to employ more healthcare personnel because there's not enough of them. We also believe that, personally, I believe it's important for the healthcare personnel to be provided enough incentives to stay in the country. The developed world is providing enough incentive to attract our people to leave the country. It's challenging for a developing country. So our job is to be able to train more, provide more educational institutions for health, for nurses, for the midwives, and for the doctors, and then provide them the necessary incentives for them to stay. We think that will help out.
But at Sanford, have you gone through any training regime for any health service providers?
Not long ago, we had actually a scholarship program in conjunction with the Ministry of Health, where we provided funding to sponsor nurses, doctors, and midwives through training that Sanford had set aside some funds that we paid for these people to be trained and then put back into the system. This sponsorship didn't require for them to come back and work for Sanford. They could come back and work for any health institution of their choice, including the government. So we do take initiatives like that to be able to improve the availability of healthcare personnel in the country.
Are these scholarships still open? And if they are, what are the requirements? Or what does one need to have in order to qualify to access these sponsorship packages from Sanford?
I believe last year was the end of that funding period. We might take a look at other funding opportunities for people to participate in to improve their health education. But when we get into next year's budget cycle, we might take a look at other opportunities.
But are you able to share with us how many health personnel you have helped to train through the sponsorship you talk about?
I don't have the specific figures, but I do know that when we started the program, we had $100,000, equivalent of 500,000 Ghana cedis, available to pay for the health education of these personnel. It was supposed to be a 2-year program. We did renew the funding in the second cycle of the education to make sure that people could complete. And so even when we cut the funding, we did not stop paying for those who were still in the education cycle that needed to complete the education.
Doc, when you talked about the doctor-patient ratio, I started listing on my piece of paper here the number of universities in Ghana, at least that I'm aware, that are offering courses in medicine. They're training medical doctors and nurses and so on. The UCC, the UDS, the University of Ghana, the KNUST, and the Health and Allied Sciences, University of Health and Allied Sciences. That makes it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5. And we're saying that is not enough. They churn out doctors every other year, and still we do not have a good patient-to-doctor ratio.
The biggest challenge we face is the inducement that the developed world offers our personnel, our healthcare personnel. There's a shortage of healthcare personnel in the developed world.
Right.
US, UK, around the world, a lot of the European countries. And so they entice our people to leave. And it's very difficult for someone who can travel outside the country and earn sometimes 10 times as much money as they earn here in Ghana, not to leave. It's a very challenging situation. And so our job, in my opinion, is to train more people so more of them will stay even when some choose to leave.
Do you, as Sanford, intend to expand your operations and go into other specialized areas and so on?
We have started to go into other specialty areas because in the country right now, we're facing challenges of non-communicable diseases. It used to be communicable diseases where the problems we're facing with. Now we have non-communicable diseases becoming a problem for the country. As a result of that, we are expanding our services to be able to stay in step with the medical needs of the country. And so we are expanding our facilities to organically grow to meet the medical needs of the communities we are currently serving.
So earlier I talked about the president making a proposal to build 88 more hospitals in each district. But looking at the analysis that you have done, and I'm sure that you have even more information than what we have discussed so far, 88, is that enough to solve or to fill the gaps we have in the health sector, for example? Is that a good number?
If we look at the health disparity in the northern regions, the northern part of Ghana in relation to the southern part, we will say that's not enough. However, we have to look at our financial resources and our ability to meet the needs of the people. Again, Ghana, our healthcare system, though not the very best, is adequate. An average person can go into a healthcare facility, government or private, and with the use of the National Health Insurance Card, be able to access the basic service they need to adequately take care of themselves. So the basic healthcare needs of every Ghanaian could easily be taken care of with the use of the National Health Insurance Card. That is
sorry, but I'm getting on my WhatsApp page, let me just look for that. I was getting some, because you described the healthcare system in Ghana as adequate, I have people who tend to disagree. Mumin, you're having a great show tonight, and I admire the gentility with which your guest is speaking. I'd like to know from him, Mumin, what of those who live in rural areas who cannot even access ambulances when they are pregnant and need to access the nearest health facility? Some of these persons are carried either piggyback or on motorbikes and even bicycles before they can access healthcare. Our healthcare system can definitely not be adequate.
I do not disagree with the caller or the person who just sent in the message. However, we need to, when I say adequate, I'm referring to healthcare finance in the country. The cost of providing national health insurance healthcare and make it available to the people in the country is significant. And so you have to take that cost into consideration. It's not just provision of buildings in areas where there's lack of access. There's cost involved in that. And so when I refer to adequacy, I'm also taking into consideration the availability and accessibility of healthcare in the country in relation to the population we have. However, will I say that the northern, the rural areas are adequately served? No, I do not believe that. There is inequitable access to healthcare in rural areas, and we need to do a good job at that.
All right. Farouk Yahya says, Moment, good evening to you and your guest. I'd like to find out from him the extent to which NGOs have helped to create employment within the health sector in Ghana. Maybe specifically speaking about his organization, the Sanford organization.
Our organization employs close to 300 people full-time, people who work for us full-time, not locums who work at other places. And so certainly that's employment. I believe that NGOs in the country do provide employment opportunities when they set up operations, whether it's healthcare systems, system strengthening, or whether it's manufacturing of goods and manufacturing of goods in the country. NGOs that are providing services and delivering on the charter that they were funded to do are in fact employing people to carry out the mission of the NGOs.
Right. I'll turn my attention to Facebook now, where Mariam Achulo, thank you for watching. You say that great question on the other specialized areas. Can you look at the pediatric sector of our health system? That ratio is even worse.
I couldn't disagree more. And again, I'm not defending the country in areas within our healthcare system where we have not done a good job in strengthening or providing access to care. The country does not have the necessary financial resources to provide universal healthcare coverage system like the National Health Insurance. In addition to the number of healthcare facilities the Ministry of Health is currently using to expand to reach areas where there is inadequate access to health. We are a developing country, and if we actually take a look at the amount of money spent per capita in Ghana, we are far ahead of a lot of African countries or developing countries for that matter. And so I don't make justification for the lack of access due to our inability to provide financial resources to meet those needs.
All right, Kojo Asempa Furniture Works. You said this is a lovely show indeed. Okay, Kojo Asempa Furniture Works, thank you very much. Mavis Boachi says, Sanford has done really well. Thank you very much. Samuel Ayama, I'm enjoying your show, boss. Please ask him about his take on immunization, financing, and challenges in the country. Samuel Ayama is from the Upper East region. He wants to know.
Immunization financing is really more of a public health issue that the government undertakes. The NGOs and the private healthcare sector are not really involved in undertaking immunization or public health initiatives like that. However, NGOs recognizing the need to provide finances in certain areas where immunization is needed have in fact stepped up to the plate, and where the need be, we have not delved into those areas.
Right.
It's not an area of specialty.
Another one from Mavis Boachi, she referring to the issue about employment, says, I got a job with them 7 years ago after university, and it's been great. It's been a great experience ever since. Mavis, thank you very much. Theodore Nkrumah Japan, you say, when it comes to funds, I think the IGF of health facilities could be utilized well. Thank you very much, Theodore. We are running out of time, but look, I just got some information that you own a football club. And I'm being asked to find out from you whether you are veering off from health to football, and that perhaps that might give you divided attention and probably you lose focus on the good work that you are doing. By extension, all other NGOs are contributing to the health sector. Tell me.
I do own a women's football club.
Right.
The Cape Coast Lady Strikers, resident in Cape Coast.
Oh, okay. We've done a few stories about them here on our sports news. Yes, I know.
Right, thank you.
That's your team?
Yes, that's my team. Thanks for the coverage. I got involved because the club at the time needed financial resources to be able to continue to exist. And so I provided financial resources to help that way. However, having gone into the sector, I realized that women's sports in the country needed a little more attention. When you mention the Black Stars or you mention men's football in the country, it attracts a lot of financial resources because it also has an opportunity to pay off really well. The women have been underprivileged. And so Sanford actually provided funding to sponsor the Women's FA Cup for about 4 years because we realized that the women's football needed to be resourced to get to the level where it received the necessary attention for the public to be able to start appreciating not just the quality of football the women play, but also to provide role models for girls in the community to look up to because they are male role models, and we believe the women also should be able to give the opportunity to enjoy role model status for girls growing up.
I'm just curious, so for how long have you been doing this?
I've been involved in women's football for 5 years.
And so far, would you say you are achieving the aim that you went into women's football with? Are you on course?
I like to think we're on course. I didn't go into it with a desire to make money. I went into it with the intention to help improve women's football on the average. And so we were able to do that on the community level in Cape Coast with my club. And then at the national level, when we sponsored, Sanford sponsors the Women's FA Cup, it also gave us an opportunity at the national platform to reach out to women in different geographic areas across the country, actually, to be able to help educate, to improve their health, and then also to provide them the necessary opportunities for professional women to now be recruited and join international clubs outside of the country so that they could also earn more money to be able to send back home. So have we achieved that goal? I like to think that we're on course. I'm proud of what we've been able to do.
Have you witnessed any of your women, the women who play for your team?
Yes.
Have you seen any of them get an invitation to Black Queens or the Black Maidens, any of the national teams, have you?
Of course. As we speak right now, they have called the U20 national team in camp. We have a player in there. They've called the Queens in camp. We have 2 players there. We do have the type of players that actually do participate in the national teams a lot and then help the country. So we're quite proud of that. In addition to that, we have some of our ladies have gotten scholarships to go to universities outside of the country, particularly in US and also in Europe, full ride scholarship because of the football and the training they got from us.
Right.
And then we've also had some of our girls travel outside to play for our professional teams. So there have been opportunities for them to leverage, and I'm happy to see that.
Okay, final question, because we are out of time now, and it's from Idrisu Abdul Rashid. He is from Wa in the Upper West region. He says, Woman, good show. Please ask Doctor when he will bring some of the shoes to us here in the Upper West region. There are many communities in these parts who have children very brilliant, but because of the lack of basic things such as shoes, sometimes cannot even go to school because they don't have the confidence to sit in class with others whose parents can afford to buy them shoes.
I'm glad the individual shares the vision that caused us to want to get into distribution of shoes, free shoes to schools. And if he gives us his information, even though that geographic part is not part of the areas we intend to distribute, I will make sure that we get into those areas and we'll bring at least 5,000 shoes in those areas and distribute to the schools there, if he gives us his contact.
All right, so I'm going to become the liaison officer, and I'll ensure that I liaise between you, the texter, and Sanford, and so you come up with something, and probably those who you specifically talk about can be attended to. Doc, thank you so much for your time. It's been an enlightening conversation with you this evening. I've learned a lot, and I do hope that when we invite you again, you will make yourself available to talk to Ghanaians about some of these very important issues, especially affecting the health sector. We are very grateful that you came, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been a wonderful hour on your show.
Thank you. Tomorrow, we'll be back here. We'll keep updating you on events happening in and around the country. Have a very good night. We'll see you. Bye-bye. When the voices that matter speak, they speak to GBC. They speak on Moment Tonight.
By some of your appointments, you appear to be creating a parallel civil service. 2020 is not too far away from today. Are we seeing a comeback?
Would you say that HEPIC truly served any purpose?
The debt overhang on the economy of our country was such that the country couldn't bear it.
We've moved more people out of poverty and hunger since 1992 than any other era in the period of Ghana.
Under my watch, the Ghanaian economy picked up.
A legion of youth is being trained in terms of security.
Aging stage of your life is a time you have to plan for.
Death is a universal name.
Persons who would take their lives by suicide may, prior to the act, have given us a lot of information.
I am sufficiently intelligent to know that.
Yes, there's corruption in the Parliament of Ghana.
They make me feel bad.
We have not departed from our core principles.
I should be able to count how many millionaires I've been able to create.